Hello, this is Craig A. Price Jr., and I'm going to go through formatting on my book, The Chronicles of Starlin. Now, I'm going to tell you a couple key things that you want to do when you're formatting. Right now, I am using Scrivener. I love using Scrivener. It makes writing a lot easier to organize, easier to write different chapters. Um, right now, I'm checking my different pages, my copyright pages. And if you look, I'm using Lucidia calligraphy for my chapter headings. A little bit bigger size, 16, 14. The rest of it is all in Garamond size 11. Now, most common word processors are Times New Roman, and a lot of the new word processors are what was it, Calibri or something like that for Microsoft Word. Now, all these are good documents for presenting reports and stuff like that. For a published book, Garamond is the most commonly acceptable format to use. It's it's a little bit smaller, it's clean like Times New Roman, and it gives it more of a professional look than if you were to type it out in Times New Roman. Now, there are some people who disagree with this, but the majority of people say that Garamond is the font that you want to use. So this is what I use. Right now I'm checking through all my stuff. Now if you notice, I have no indentation on the first paragraphs, and every other paragraph is indented 0.25 inches. This is important for formatting your book. You do not want to use tabs. Tabs can mess you up. A lot of times teachers teach us to use tabs, the tab key, for indentions in classes, and it's not a good thing. Sometimes it'll be 0.5 inch, sometimes it'll be 1 inch, and to get rid of them, it's a pain in the butt. Most easy way to get rid of those after you move it into Microsoft Word is to use your find and replace feature, or Control H, and search for little arrow pointing up, which is number 6 on your numerical pad above the letters, and the letter T, and most of your tabs will come up, but you still have to individually check because tabs does some weird things to formatting, and some of them don't get picked up, but some of them are like 11 spaces, some are 12 spaces. It becomes a mess. Now if you look here, if you're using Scrivener, make sure, if you see that what I got here going on, 6.5 on my ruler, make sure that does not go past that, because if you keep your formatting, it's gonna the writing is gonna run off your page, and you're gonna run into some problems with that. Um, right now I'm looking at all my links, all my stuff, and I'm about to compile it. Just kind of showing you how my ebook is set up in Scrivener, and I can compile it straight to EPUB, and Scrivener does a fantastic job. You can upload EPUB onto Draft Digital, onto Kobo, onto Kindle, and it'll convert it to a Mobi file. Got my picture on me about the author, my map in the beginning. I believe I'm trying to search for M dash here, but it won't read the code right. So uh, typically your M dash is Control Alt minus on the keypad. Sometimes in search bars it won't show up. Now, I'm checking all these in my Scrivener. I want to go to compile. I want the title page. I want a page break before. I want them as is, which is why it's important to have the ruler at 6.5 inches. I'm including my back matter, my acknowledgments, and I'm going to separators. You want to page break. You want to get that out of custom, because otherwise every scene break you're going to have a numerical key, which is pretty standard in your Scrivener compile when you're compiling to doc. And get rid of straight and smart quotes, get rid of convert em dashes to double hyphens, get rid of ellipses to triple periods, get rid of italics to underlines. A lot of the stuff is common. It's commonly checked because you remove all hyperlinks. Make sure you do that. A lot of this stuff is pre-checked because when you submit to a publisher, that's the style they want it in, but when you're formatting, it's completely different. It's best to just leave all this stuff as is and change it in your Microsoft Word, especially the margins and everything like that. You don't want something to get mixed up. Sometimes if you make the margins smaller, you don't have your inches set right on the Scrivener ruler, it'll mess things up. So don't worry about this. Down here, you have me setting the headers and footers. Now that I have a little more experience with this, I actually suggest that you do not do this, at least with the footers, because they change every page, and sometimes you'll get a hard formatting. Like right now, you have me doing Garamond on the page number. I just wouldn't do that. I would just do that in Microsoft Word, because what it did to me is all my page numbers, every other page is Garamond and every other page is Times New Roman, and it's unfixable unless I were to redo this whole process again. But now I'm saving the file, or formatting into compiling into a Microsoft Word document. Now this takes a little bit as it compiles it all. And then you got to find your document. And here it is in Microsoft Word. Now, here's where it gets complicated. You want to go to your you got to create section breaks between each section, and this opens up a huge can of worms in Microsoft Word. Your headers and footers, you want different odd and even pages. In the beginning, you're gonna for your page number settings, you're gonna start at page 1, and then from then on, you're going to continue from previous section. So you continue from previous section, and you're gonna have to do that for each section. And these section breaks, they're you gotta do them between every chapter, and then every small section in the beginning of your book too. So the title page is one section, the dedication page is another section, um, your copyright page is another section, and you're gonna have a blank page between your title page and your dedication page. So that's another section. That's 4 sections right there on under your page layout. Um, Now you can go to page layout and margins and custom margins. Now what I'm formatting for, which is my favorite size for publishing a book, is going to be the 5.25 wide by 8 inches tall. And as far as the bigger books, it's the one that fits in the shelves the best. Once you go more than 8 inches, you're not fitting into very many bookshelves. Even 8 inches has trouble. It's more like a hardback size. But CreateSpace doesn't really have a whole lot of options for smaller, um, as it is tall, for decent prices. Now you see here I have my inside is 0. Okay, so my inside edge is 0 indentions. That's because you're adding a gutter. And right now I'm gonna Google the guidelines for the gutter, because different page numbers have different gutters that you use. Now on my outside edges and everything else, I pretty much use a 0.4. See, I'm changing my page size here. Now I think I might have messed this up when I was doing this one here. See, that's my page size, 5.25 by 8. But see that on the very bottom where it says apply to this section, you'll see me fix this later, but you're going to want to apply it to the whole document. I didn't notice that I didn't do that when I was doing this. Okay, as far as the page breaks, the best way to do your page breaks, instead of at the end of your section to create a new section, is better to go to the beginning of your section, the very top. Say you're on chapter 1, you click before the word chapter, and then you go to page layout, click breaks, and then click next page. It's like the 4th one down, and it'll create an actual next page between those 2 pages. And you have to do that for every chapter. Okay, so we got the right page size here now. And see, right there, I noticed that I only have on the first section. That's when I have to go and fix it. My next video, now that I've organized this a little better, should be a little bit quicker of a video, but this kind of shows you a little bit of the learning process I had to go through. This is the 3rd book I have formatted of my own. The first one was a lot more back and forth as I'm trying to figure out. You know, the second one not quite as bad, and this one still not quite as bad. But I believe I got it further down now to where I won't have to redo quite as much. Now, if you see, it has apply to the whole document on the bottom now. Now I got 0.4 inches for my header on top and bottom. I don't want huge margins on the top and bottom or the side of the book. This is a problem you see in a lot of self-published books, is they have these huge margins, or they use tabs throughout the book, and so the tabs go from half of an inch to 1 inch, and you're you're wasting a lot of space in these books. It's a lot of white space, and you're paying per page. So you want to make sure you do this right. You see, here's the page on Create Space, where it shows you your inside margins, your outside margins, and your page count. The outside margins, they say at least 0.25 of an inch. I use 0.4. 0.25 would be, that's a quarter of an inch on the edges, and I think that's a little too small myself. That's entirely up to you. But I think if anything bigger than 0.4 is completely too big. Now, once you make this adjustment, it's going to ask you if they want to. It's going to be unprintable. Do they want you? Do you want them to fix it? Ignore that. This is unprintable for home printers, not book publishing. It's completely different with how Microsoft Word is set up. You notice I got some spaces, quite a bit of spaces in here. Looks like I'm probably going to change this. This looks like it's all double spaced still. And so you want this to be single spaced. 1.0, not 1.15, 1.0, single spaced. Now you still see there's quite a bit of formatting that I need to do. If you notice that now the paragraphs are spaced between each other. First edition right there, since it's justified, first is on the left and edition is on the right, I have to fix that. Right now I'm fixing my my title page. Now it's on one page. As you see, it takes a little bit of adjustments until you get it set just right. What I'm thinking as I'm doing this title page is I'm thinking, okay, where can I put my message to somebody, and where can I sign my book? Okay, I want to sign my book between my name and the little logo for the publishing company, and I'll make my note between the title and my name. See how it says link to previous section? When I go to the footer, make sure that each one of your footers is not linked to previous. It's going to mess up some of your headers and footers. Now, since I'm making section breaks like I was telling you earlier, each section you have to do the header and footer. Especially when it comes to the page numbers, you have to link to the previous section, or you gotta make sure that you're not linked to the previous section every single time. Okay, I'm going to my options now. Advanced, you scroll to the bottom. This will take care of a lot of our problems here. Not all of them. But you go down, look at your extra options. Right there, shift return. Don't expand character spaces with with lines that end in shift return. What that is that first addition that you saw earlier, where it's going to expand short sentences, which also happen on the end of paragraphs too. What expands them to justified, and you don't want that. You want the ones that are short to stay short. What I'm looking for in here, I can't find, and it's to fix those spaces between the paragraphs, but I'll figure that out here in a minute. Now I'm showing you that first edition. You see how it's normal right now. Um, if I have that box unchecked, I'll show you what it looks like real quick. So under File and Options, you want to go to Advanced, scroll to the bottom, select Layout Options. That's where all this stuff is. A huge list will pop up. Um, the things you want to check mark are do full justification the way WordPerfect 6x for Windows does, and don't expand character spaces on a line that ends in shift return. Those are the two most important ones right there. And here I am still looking for a way to get rid of those extra spaces between paragraphs. But I don't find them at this time. How to remove those, I'm sure I'll figure out here in a second. I'm going to go ahead and tell you. Um, you select all your text that it's happening to, which is most of your document. Go ahead and select it all, Control A to select everything. Go to your Home tab and then your paragraph spacing. Well, you've set your double space and your single space. Okay. And look at the bottom of your spacing menu that pops up. You'll see remove space after paragraph. Click it. Now, all your annoying white spaces between paragraphs are gone. There'll be two of them. There'll be space after paragraph and space before paragraph. Make sure both of them are gone. Sometimes it might be the other way, but you want to make sure that your spaces before paragraphs are not there, because that's not what a book should look like. You see it right here. Line spacing options. No, I didn't go far enough down on my paragraphs. See, I think I find it here, but it's not really there. I was real close to figuring it out too. Oh, see, I missed it again somehow. You just saw how the paragraphs moved. Microsoft Word can be a pain. It's not meant for formatting books, it's meant for typing documents. Um, and so it's got a little bit of a learning curve when you learn how to format your own book, but it's not that bad. You see, I'm butchering this whole thing up right here because I don't know what I'm doing. Um, see, sometimes you'll run into these problems, and sometimes you won't. Um, this spacing problem, the last two books I did not run into this problem. The spacing was right. I don't know why this one was different, but it was different. Now you see add space before paragraph, remove space after paragraph. So now I want to remove space after paragraph, and that'll fix my problem. Now every time you do one of these, even if you select everything, you're gonna want to double check it. Now I'm showing you the add space after, add space before, so you can kind of see what it does. Looks like I already went over this on this video because I see the hyphens. But for a little bit more explanation on that, you go to page layout, hyphenization, and checkmark automatic. What this does is it'll make less white space between your words and give it a more professional look by using hyphens on long words from line to line, like published books have. It may also save you a page or two. Make sure you check your title, which you saw in mine. It has been hyphened on page 1. Use a shift plus return key to separate words on different lines if you need to. Alright, now I'm working on my page numbers. Now when you have different first page and different odd and even pages check marked, which is what you need to have when you're under your header and footer formatting tab on the top once you enter into it, you need to make sure that you do it for the odd and the even pages, because if it's different odd and even pages, which you have to do for your different headers, because for books you have, if you look at most of your books, the author name is on odd pages, the title is on even pages. So you're going to have to put in the page numbers on both odds and even pages. You're going to have to insert page number on both odds and evens. Otherwise, you only have single-sided page numbers throughout. Now right here, I'm eyeballing where I want this at on my chapter headings. You know, a lot of them have at least halfway down, sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more before each chapter. Now, if you look, I'm getting one of them, and then I'm control copying. That will have that same white space as I do on the next chapter, and I'm going to go ahead and put that in every single chapter, and then I'm going to kind of check it for the first couple to make sure I'm entering it in right. So here's my header. Make sure you get rid of link to previous. You do not want that. It messes the whole thing up. Looks like I don't get rid of it yet, but I'm centerizing it. Okay, this is my odd page. I'm typing in my name. And then on the even page, and I'm centering it. No, this is my odd page still for some reason. Now you see the hyphens miss me up here. So I just had to hit one shift enter on that to get it fixed on that. You don't want your title hyphen, that's just weird. Now, a lot of times, if you look at this prologue page, there's no header and there's no footer. Your very first chapter, you're not going to want a header or footer. No page number, you know. After that, every chapter, you're going to want the page number, but you're not going to want the header. You still have the header right here on the top, and that's because I haven't done a section break for it yet. So right now I'm counting how many and how many were on chapter 1 to make sure that I copy the right amount. And then after that, I want to be inputting them in to every single chapter to make sure that it's the same distance. And that's another key when you're formatting your book is don't expect it to be right. Double check everything. There's so many little nitpicky things on here. You see, I just had to uncheck another link to previous. Now I'm going to have to format the page numbers, continue from previous section. Now, when you're making section breaks for every one of these chapters, and you have that different first page, that way you have no header on your chapter heading. It's going to make no footer as well. And so you will have to manually first make sure you unlink to previous, otherwise they're gonna copy that same thing on every first page of every section. That's why link to previous is bad. But you will have to manually type in your page numbers at the beginning, at the first page of each chapter. You have to manually type that one in. All the rest of them will work just fine. Alright, I changed my evens to my title. My odds are my name for the headers. Now, I'm not doing this very efficiently. The next book I format, I have a little bit better of a method I've been working on. And I hope to put a video up of it as well, so you can see how I've improved on this formatting. And so I can see how I've improved on this formatting. See, like right now, I'm putting in section breaks. And I'm doing this chapter per chapter. Putting in section breaks. At the same time as entering my little spaces before my chapters. And it's a lot more efficient if you just stick to one task and just do it all the way down. Like that little interspace, I think if I just did all of those first, and then come back and add sections, then come back and do page numbers all at one time, link to previous, Now, one thing you're going to notice when you make all these section breaks, you see I'm doing what I was telling you earlier. I'm just worrying about one thing and I'm coming back for the other. Um, when you make all these section breaks, Microsoft Word likes to do something. And it does it for, I don't know, for printing or something. I don't know exactly what the reason is. But it likes to make invisible pages for you. When you have a new section, it refuses to start a new section on an even page. It refuses to do that. What it will do is create an invisible even page and then start it on an odd page. And so that is why it's important that on all your sections, after you create all your sections, you go to all your sections, all the footers, and make sure you uncheck that link to previous. Alright, now I'm creating all these section breaks. Watch the page numbers on the bottom. They will significantly increase as it's creating invisible pages. They should, theoretically, they should stay the same. Okay, the page numbers should not increase. Because I'm creating sections, I'm not creating more pages. But every time it starts an even page, the page number is going to go up. But the reason you have to do this is because of those headers and footers, mainly because of the header. You do not want a header on your chapter starting of pages. It's not in any print book that you see. And it's the only way to get rid of them. Sadly, they have the headers so interlockly connected that all you can do is have a different first page. You cannot just decide to take them off certain pages, otherwise it'll take it off of everywhere. I'm waiting on someone to come out with a program for formatting that just knows this stuff. Or at least is more customizable to where you don't have to do this extra steps. All these extra steps is what makes formatting your own book a pain. And it's one of the most important things, because I've picked up a lot of self-published books that have not had justified texts. You see all those texts, how it's beautiful, it's justified, you have the hyphenization on it. There'll be a lot of it where it's left justified and self-published, and it looks bad. I've seen big published books have a left justification, and I open it up, I'm just like, I start reading it, I'm like, this looks terrible. The only big published books I've seen is the adult series Left Behind. I noticed that it's all left justified. It just looks so weird, because every other published book, it's complete justification for your text. Now, there are two things you want to do on your page numbers. Get rid of your link to previous. And there's one more thing you have to do in the page number options itself. You have to continue from the previous section. Otherwise, it's just going to start from the beginning every time. So get rid of your link to previous. if you have to, if it's not flowing, like looks like this one is flowing, but if it's not flowing, you're gonna have to make sure that it's formatted to continue from previous section. So this will get rid of all your invisible even page numbers. As you see, this is tedious work. You have to make sure you uncheck link to previous before you do the page number, because if you change it before that, the previous section is going to change to whatever number you typed into there. The first page of that section is going to be that page number. So you have to make sure you uncheck link to previous. And then change that page number to the proper number. Generally speaking, I think the first time I formatted my book, it took me 2 hours. I had to come back and I had to fix a little tiny bit. My second time, maybe an hour and a half. This video here is about an hour 20. That's because I ran into a problem later, which I ended up cutting out of this video because I figured it out. All my Google research was useless. And so I cut that out of the video later, and I'll show you how I got through that problem. But I imagine my next one will be less than an hour. It's just one of those things, the more you practice it, the better you get. If you don't have a bunch of books to format right away, I would suggest see if they have any local authors who are getting ready for print, and ask if you can format their book for, I don't know, for free or for just, you know, a little bit of money, just so you can get your feet wet. Help them out, because it's not something you're gonna pick up from doing one time. You're gonna want to do it several times to where after that you can be like, okay, this is not a big deal anymore. Because as you see, it's a lot of intricate work. You see it says continue from previous section right there. Continue from previous section. You want to make sure that that is everywhere. Otherwise, those invisible pages are still going to be there. But as you see, there's a lot of just nitpicky details. Microsoft Word makes it a pain. Some people like to format their paperback straight from Scrivener. They'll just format straight to a PDF. I don't know how that works. I haven't tested it to see if it has a way not to slap the headers, the footers, and the headers on the bottom, and the page numbers properly. But with how I like to format, I need to do it through Word, because there are certain things you can't do in Scrivener. Alright, when you bring it from Scrivener to Word, you want to make sure you remove your links, but it's not going to remove the text color or the underlines from your links. So that's what I'm doing right now, is I'm changing everything to black ink, getting rid of the underline. I'm printing these in black and white. I'm not spending a fortune to print them in color. You do that for picture books only. If you accidentally click it, you'll ask yourself, why is my 300-page book cost $20 a piece? So I'm going to remove all my colors, which I also have a logo, a publishing company logo in the beginning that I will have to change to black and white, but I do have a black and white image of it. This here is also a shorter book. Longer books might take a little bit longer, but I don't really think that much of a difference. I still have quite a bit of chapters in here, and it's not necessarily how big the book is, it's how many different sections you have that takes the time. Any links that you want someone to know that used to be hyperlinks for your ebook version, you need to make sure you type out the full web address. Here I am changing my publishing logo. I have a black and white version. And as you see, there's a lot of just checking your work. I'm just making sure everything here looks the way it's supposed to look. And here's where I run into my first big problem. This is where the video expands quite a bit, but I cut it out. My drop caps. I like a 3-line drop cap for my epic fantasies, a 2-line drop cap for my urban fantasy. You see right here, I'm having trouble getting that drop cap to work. I end up fixing that problem later. I go off on a huge Google tangent, which doesn't help me one bit, and I just use a little bit of backward logic, common sense myself to figure it out. So I'm just going to skip ahead and do the rest of the drop caps, which the rest of them work out perfectly, just how they're supposed to. For drop caps, as you're seeing me do here, you select the first letter of each chapter, and you go to Insert, Drop Caps, and Dropped. My Word document is automatically set up for a 3-line drop, which is what I use from epic fantasy books. But like I said, my urban fantasy I like using only a 2-line drop. You go to Insert, Drop Cap Options, and select Drop Lines to drop 2 lines if you want 2 instead of 3. Sadly, I don't know how to hard code format that, so you'll have to do that through the options for 2-line drop on every single chapter. But it only takes an extra second per chapter. You see, right here I'm still struggling with this prologue. I'll give up on it shortly, and I'll get back to it at the end. While I'm still trying to figure this out here on this video, let me talk about some other things you should consider. White versus cream paper. Most of the books on your shelf are done in cream paper, if you actually look at them. Cream looks much better for a book, especially a fiction book. The problem with cream paper is it's thicker and heavier than white paper and increases your width and your weight more than white paper does. Still, I suggest using cream for fiction and white for nonfiction. That'll make your nonfiction a little bit cheaper, and people don't care as much. With nonfiction, they're going to be using highlighters and stuff like that in it if it's informational, and it'll keep your costs down for your nonfiction. Another thing you can consider is your cover. Now, this is something I didn't really learn until an independent bookseller told me this. You see right here, I'm changing my gutters to the proper size. But back to the cover. You want a professional cover done. Don't have something cheap or slapped together. Even if you're an artist or know an artist, you still want to find someone who has experience with covers or graphic design to touch it up and make it look a little better. You don't want any white space around your borders, which I've seen several self-published books have. You want it to be completely fit the front cover, and you want it to wrap around if you can. So instead of having your cover artist draw a picture on a portrait, um, vertical portrait, you want them to draw it on more of a horizontal portrait. Now, what you can do is when you find out about the width of your front cover, you know where your spine's going to be, they can draw something that kind of goes over the spine and to the back. and that really adds a beautiful touch to your cover. Like on my book, The Crimson Claymore, um, my warrior on the front with a sword has his red cape kind of goes onto the side of the spine and onto the back. On the Chronicles of Star, on this one here, um, my character Arya, her hair flows off the side edge of the book around the spine and onto the back. And it's a nice little touch. Um, the placement of your title and your author name, especially on the spine, I kind of got slightly chewed at one time by an independent bookstore owner. He told me that my name should be at the top because I'm selling myself first, and then my title should be at the bottom. This is something I had never thought about, and then I started looking at the books in this bookstore. You know, all the spines were out, and it's not every book, but 80% of them, the author's name is on the top, and the title is on the bottom on that spine, and that's something to keep in mind whether you want to match that or not. That's something you have to talk to your cover artist about. Now you see here I'm finishing up my drop caps. First letter, drop cap, dropped. And as you see, it's working everywhere else except for my prologue. And I don't know why it did that. As I said, a lot of times when you're formatting, you run into a different problem every time. That's another thing before this book I had never ran into. It worked every time, just like the spaces between paragraphs. So those two big things that I had to learn how to do. And you might run into something that I haven't ran into here. Um, and you might have to do a little bit of research. But it can be, formatting is definitely a pain. But you see the drop caps. I love them. I love how they look, and that's one of the biggest things that you cannot do in Scrivener. Scrivener does not have drop caps. Um, some people have very few, but some people have drop caps in their ebooks. And they have to use either Word or InDesign or something like that to format their books to have drop caps, because otherwise Scrivener doesn't do that. I would love for them to add that feature in an updated version of Scrivener. Um, Several people would, but we'll see. Scrivener already has so much. It really is a fantastic program for writers. I love the. I'm about to fix this problem here, but to go back to Scrivener real quick, I love the research. It has a little research section below all your chapters and new scene that you make. Has research, and it's not included when you compile your story. It's completely out of the compiling feature. And inside of there, whatever character sheets I have, plot sheets I have, I put them all in there, and I don't have to actually use the internet for anything. All right, now you see here, this is what I did to make this drop cap work. I copied the paragraph from the next section, and I pasted it in my prologue, but it started with an S, so I changed my S to a T, which is the proper drop cap. And then I removed all the words in the paragraph and moved my paragraph up. So here's the previous paragraph, and then I'm going to go all the way to here, and then I paste that paragraph, and then I carefully um, single letter delete this the first word here, because when I just went all the way to it, another crazy formatting thing happened. But then I delete that paragraph that I just made, bring it back, go over here, get rid of that last little thing, and look, see, perfect. I could not get the drop cap to work, so I worked myself around it. I stole a paragraph where it did work. I moved it up here to the prologue. I changed the drop cap letter. I moved the paragraph up, deleted the paragraph I copied. That was the paragraph right there. That paragraph in chapter 1 I copied. I moved up. I got rid of the S. Now I'm just checking everything. There's a lot of stuff to check to make sure everything went good. A couple of the ground rules, we kind of talked about this earlier in this video. To not use the tab key. Make sure you use indentions instead. Your indentions should be 0.25 inches to 0.3 inches. I personally like 0.25 inches. I think it looks real nice in the book. The indentions aren't too big. And then the first paragraph of your chapters and the first paragraphs of your scene breaks are not indented. Pick up a published book on your shelf, look at it. They're not indented. And then you can change the first paragraphs of chapters, that first letter, to a drop cap. You wouldn't do that for a scene break. You would just keep it just non-indented. Sometimes people like to have like the whole first word in all caps. It's a preference thing. Look at some of your favorite books and decide from there. You see, I'm checking through, and it's a good thing I'm checking, see, because I'm seeing these spaces between some of these paragraphs here. Even though I fixed that, for some reason, chapter 2 got exempted from it. Even though I selected everything. I selected all my text, all my chapters, and got rid of it. Chapter 2 still slipped by. And this is why you just go through and you check everything. So even when you think you're done, make sure you check from chapter to chapter. Check your drop caps. Look at your page numbers. Look at your headers and footers. Just check everything. Because chances are something's going to slip through, even if it's supposed to be done. When you get finished, I really do suggest getting yourself a proof copy. Ordering that single book.